Hello everyone and welcome back to Chapter 17, Special Occasion Speaking. Previously we've been discussing what special occasion speeches are, as well as some of the types, introductions, award presentations, award acceptance. Now we're going to be finishing off the different types of special occasion speeches, as well as discussing some guidelines. To recap a little bit of what I've said in the previous video, special occasion speeches are about communicating values and ideas that the audience can all identify with, reinforcing that shared value, which then builds a sense of community. If everyone else believes that this is valuable, or this has this specific value attribution, then therefore we are all alike in that way. So we are going to jump into the next type of special occasion speech, which is funerals or eulogies. This type of speech is a specific testimonial speech that praises the dead. It typically celebrates the essential character of the person and highlights the person's virtues rather than specific accomplishments. What is a eulogy about? It is not about how this person died. It is not about how sad we are. It is instead focusing on their value. Just like every other special occasion speech, it is highlighting why this person was valuable to us all. And in so doing, it should be positive, not focusing on how bad of a situation this is. Instead, focusing on what we can learn from them and how we should look up to them. This means that we should keep it positive in tone, helps the listener recall the honoree's personality and character. This is especially true because if someone goes to a eulogy, they usually know who the person is. So, if you recall the honoree's personality and characteristics, then that is something that we can all identify around. And we want to be sure that we're limiting personal references. And this is important because that may not be so easily identifiable or relatable to everyone in that audience. So, for example, if you have a grandparent, what are some of the things that they have done in their lives, their accomplishments? And how did they get to those accomplishments? What type of person were they? Were they a bit grumpy? Were they very joyful? All of those are specific characteristics, and focusing on their personality that we can all identify around and communicate a value for that person. Next, we have toasts. Toasts are delivered in the presence of the honoree and concludes with raising a glass to salute. We should strive to keep it at waist level until the very end and then raise your glass. The reason why, and this does sound a little bit silly, is because if you keep your hands raised, then everyone's going to raise their arms until eventually people start having their arms get tired, and then there will be sporadic dropping of or lowering of the glasses until your speech is done, and then everyone raises again, and it's just a little bit awkward. So instead, keep it at waist level until the very end, and then raise your glass. It should contain one key characteristic of the honoree. When you are toasting someone, you are communicating that they have value in some way, shape, or form. A good example of this is a wedding toast. What is the value communicated at a wedding? Love. Love is a very big value within our culture, and as a result, we show that so that we all identify around that, and therefore we all feel connected by that. Supporting materials should include one or two incidents that illustrate this characteristic, talent, or virtue, and conclude with raising the glass so that everyone can join in. Then we have after dinner speeches, which are funny and entertaining speeches on a very light topic. Make sure the speech has a point and pick the right topic for the occasion. After dinner speeches are very much bound by context, and as a result, you should know your audience and be able to identify with your audience and make it entertaining and light and funny so that the audience can show that identification. And then a keynote speech. And the keynote speech is usually at a conference of some kind where we communicate a significant idea to the entire audience. Just like a keynote, ding, it permeates throughout the rest of the meeting, the conference, the overall event. So the goal is, again, intended to present a significant idea. And this sets the tone for the rest of the meeting or the event, inspires the participants, summarizes the message given during the conference, and inspire participants to apply this message. When you see keynotes, they are especially impactful when they inspire the audience to use this one or live up to this one particular value, be it achievement, be it working hard, be it learning, be it care. All of these are very important and very valuable in our culture. So when we communicate that idea out, it permeates throughout our audience. Decide what message you want to send and be structured around themes, principles, or lessons learned rather than focusing on one person or like the other special occasion speeches. So again, just like all the rest, it's communicating a value. And lastly, we have a commemorative speech. The goal is to remember special events of the past, usually delivered on the anniversary of an event. What are some of the big events in our lives? Things like the 4th of July. That is a special event that is commemorated on the 4th of every July. And same thing with Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Same thing with other days that we celebrate and give speeches during. So, the point of this is to emphasize a few key points and presenting it as a narrative. That we abstract certain virtues or special characteristics of the event. The Challenger space mission. What are some of the virtues that we can pull from such a terrible moment in our history? A pioneering spirit. That there are sacrifices, but that those sacrifices are not going to be in vain. And by abstracting virtues from these events, it allows for the audience to identify around those virtues and give these events meaning. We also want to relate these features to the listeners' lives because we can talk about high-minded ideals, but until it is relevant to an audience, as we've said before, audiences are egocentric, and until it's relevant to them, it may not land. So we want to make it relevant to their lives. Also challenge the audience to adhere to the standards evidenced in the event. So, just like all of these, it's communicating a value about this certain event. And as a result, making it about that value, relating it to the listener specifically so that they can identify around those values, building a sense of community. So, All of these are special occasions. And as a result, we have deemed these as important, that they are valuable in some way. So we want to try to, number one, so there are two key parts to again understand that we are communicating the value of this situation, and that also we are conforming to the situational expectations. This means keeping it short at times, acknowledging the obvious of the situation, because if it is so obvious and no one is talking about it, then it's very relevant or um, engaging. A good example of this was, unfortunately, my grandpa passed away fairly recently. And, he had a lot of great things about him. That being said, he also was very loud and very, boisterous and would say the craziest things. And while this was a bit embarrassing at times, we talked about it at his eulogy, and we all identified around that because that was his character, who we knew him to be, and that was something that had value because we all had great impressions of him based off of that one thing that was obvious. Yes, it may not have been super positive at every single time it was done, but it was who he was. And as a result, it was a positive experience or impact on us. So we want to keep these situations positive. When we are negative about these situations, it diminishes the value of them. A good example of this is a wedding toast that talks negatively about someone there. Oh, I remember when Steve would, be super rambunctious and would try to get into fights with people. That was hilarious. Things like that really, again, don't communicate value for that person and diminish the occasion and diminish, again, the value. And use humor carefully. That while humor can be a very powerful tool, because we can engage the audience and the entire audience can build around that shared response, it also, when it doesn't land or when it is inappropriate, that can be diminish the situation as well. So that concludes special occasion speeches. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next time.